Dr. Turner. Dr. Stephen Turner was already curious about Galicia as a small boy when he spent the holidays davening or praying at a Galicianer synagogue with his grandparents in Brooklyn. That was the start of his journey into genealogy, as he tried to prove that his family's surname was never changed. He's written about this journey as a blogger for the Times of Israel and in various genealogical publications. Stephen is the founder of the Nadvorna Shtetl Research Group and is an active member of the Rahatan. I'm going to butcher these names, I'm sorry.
You're doing well, you're doing well.
And then
Shendeshev Malopolsky, that's.
thank you. Research groups. He is devoted to preserving Jewish heritage and culture in the former lands of Galicia and partnered with the ESJF Cemeteries Initiative to clean up and fence the Nadvorna Jewish Cemetery. He is a member of the board of the Jewish Genealogical Society of Long Island, as well as being a member of the JGS of New York. He conducts research on Ashkenazi DNA and is the project administrator of several Jewish DNA projects on family tree DNA. He's a product of the New York City Public Schools. He has a BA in sociology from Queens College, a DDS from the NYU College of Dentistry, and has a private practice in New York. So we will begin with Dr. Kitterer's presentation, and then we will move to Dr. Turner. I invite you all to put your questions in the chat. We will monitor those, but we will save questions for after comments by Dr. Kitterer and Dr. Turner. So let me just pin Dr. Kitterer so we can see her. And go ahead.
Thank you very much again for opportunity to present about this horrible war that Russia began against Ukraine. I immigrated from Ukraine in 1997. I lived 2 years in Israel. Then in 99 came to United States. But I never lost connection with my friends and colleagues and relatives in Kyiv. I traveled to Kyiv last time in October last year for commemorational events for 80th anniversary of Babi Yar massacre. And it was peaceful, beautiful city that you can see on illustrations. And there peacefully live Ukrainian, Russian, Jewish people, Poles, Tatars. There was no any national conflicts, and everything was disturbed by the war that Russia started against Ukraine. There rumors about war went since last fall. There are some even publications on this topic on the internet, but nobody can believe until the end, probably the last few days before war starts, that Russia will dare start this war. One of the reasons for this, because people did not see the reason for this war. They cannot imagine that in 21st century in Europe, possible a new large war that basically unmotivated by all from side of Ukraine. However, on February 24th, Russia simultaneously from 3 different districts of Russia and also from territory of Belarus attack Ukraine. So you can see from the north, from Belarus, Russian troops cross border with Ukraine, as well as from the east and also from Crimea. And what they did in first days of war, they basically significantly destroyed Ukrainian military bases. This is why Ukraine now asking for weapons, because their airplanes, their tanks, many of them, their military planes were destroyed in first days of the war by rocket attack, by bombs, by Russian aviation. And Russia provides a tactic that they simultaneously have land operation and airstrikes against all largest cities of Ukraine. I should admit that Ukrainian people heroically fight against Russians on the ground and in the sky. However, as I said, they badly need more weapons because their weapons were significantly destroyed in the first days of the war. Russia in general, much larger country than Ukraine. That's why Russian army larger. Russia has 144 million people, while Ukraine only 43 million people. And in the beginning of war, you can see that Russia had in 2.5 times a larger army by troops, more tanks, airplanes. And of course, Russia has a much larger reserve, 2 million versus 900,000 by Ukraine. And Russia has nuclear weapons. This is why everybody afraid, basically, Russia right now. President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, of Jewish origins, and he right now have support of 91% of population of Ukraine because he really behave as hero. He defer all offer to evacuate with government from the country. And he said that he will fight there until the end, until either victory or his death, but he never would give up. Interesting that Putin claims that he started this war to denazify Ukraine. It's absolutely a ridiculous claim because, as I said, there are no Nazis. All people live peacefully in many different nations. And Jews in independent Ukraine took such high positions that they never had before in Soviet Union. For example, Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Alexei Reznikov, Jewish, as well as President Zelensky, Jewish. In government, we can find Ukrainian, Russian, Poles, Tatars. This is a really multinational country. The mayor of Kiev also said that he will fight until the victory or his death. He was champion of the world in box. He a famous boxer, but he said that he ready, if necessary, sacrifice his life for his native city and Ukraine. What is interesting is that he is son of intermarriage. Basically, he has in his family Ukrainian people and Jewish people. His grandmother was Holocaust survivor. And she was rescued by some Ukrainian boy. There was a very romantic story that was in love with his grandmother. So his grandmother was basically rescued by a boy that was in love with her. You can see what the Russian troops doing in Ukraine. Putin claimed that they just denazify and demilitarize Ukraine, but really they ruin everything on their way. Today, for example, a few hours ago, they destroyed children's hospital by bombs, killed many children. We still don't know even number of victims because people try to take from the ruins everybody who's still alive. They bomb apartment buildings, they bomb kindergartens, they bomb civilian population. Already by yesterday, 1,400 civilians died in this war. Of course, they killed military people also, but many victims of the war, it's children and also elderly people, because when I call to Kiev to my friends, they telling me that they who has bomb shelter in the house going to bomb shelter. Usually it is a garage or basement. But many people don't have any bomb shelters, or some elderly people unable to walk to bomb shelters because they have some problem with their legs and they cannot move fast. So you can imagine what would happen with people who were in these buildings in downtown Kharkiv. They destroyed universities, they destroyed churches, they destroyed schools. If Putin look for Nazis, he should look at Nazis among Russian troops, because what they're doing is definitely war crimes. And I hope that after war will be some military tribunal where all these people will be taken. And you could see that people, of course, women, children fleeing from Ukraine, because it's very dangerous situation. For example, Kharkiv, a city with 1.5 million people, already left 600,000 people. And you can see and imagine this evacuation. You can see this crowd on the central train station. But not only Kiev and Kharkiv suffer from airstrike. Suffer also Chernihiv, is a north city close to Russian border. There are destroyed apartment buildings and also kindergarten. Suffer Bucha, it's a suburb of Kiev. Suffer Irpin. You can see that Ukrainian soldier rescued from ruins some baby. Basically airstrikes everywhere in the country. In Mariupol, yesterday, people start to die, child died from dehydration, because this southern city was encircled by Russian troops and they don't allow any humanitarian aid to bring to the city, in spite of agreement about humanitarian convoys that's supposed to bring humanitarian aid. Each time when truck drivers try to bring to city food and water, they shoot people. So, I mean, Russian really behave as Nazis in territory of Ukraine. You can see Borodyanka, also close to Kiev, what remained from apartment buildings after Russian airstrikes. This man lost during airstrike his wife and 12-year-old daughter, and this everything that remained from his house. My friend Serozha told me that schools now turn to evacuation stations, and many people who lost a place to live right now live in basements of the schools, and basically it's just humanitarian tragedy. Ukrainians fight quite bravely already for 2 weeks. 2 weeks already continue the war. And they shot many Russian planes. They burnt many Russian tanks. But they need more weapons. And what is painful, I again discussed it with my friend today, that Poland last weekend promised give to Ukraine airplanes. Now, Poland afraid to give it directly. Poland said that it give it to NATO, and that NATO should provide airplanes to Ukraine. And NATO does not want to be involved in the war. And basically, Ukrainian people continue to perish every day. You can see that Ukrainian army, like country, multinational army. There are many Ukrainian soldiers. There are some Russian soldiers who fight against Putin regime in the Ukrainian army. There are Jewish soldiers. And they all fight because they know that Putin regime is a regime of dictatorship, basically political slavery. And they want to live in free country, in democratic country. They don't want to live under horrible dictatorship. This data already backwards, even though that I got it a few days ago, because now Ukrainian claimed that they already destroyed 12,000 Russian troops. And much more airplanes and tanks and so on. If we think about this data and compare with previous wars that had Russia, You probably can see that this much more bloody war. Just for example, Russia had 10 years war in Afghanistan from 1979 to 1989. And for 10 years of war in Afghanistan, Soviet Union, then it still was Soviet Union, lost 14,000 people. In this war, by today, already Russia lost in 2 weeks 12,000 soldiers. Of course, all world stand with Ukraine because they understand that Ukraine fight not only for itself, it fight for Western civilization, for Western values, for democracy, against horrible, basically fascist Nazi regime of Putin. And you can see that Jewish people even prayed, covered themselves by Ukrainian flags near Western Wall in Jerusalem. Even in Russia itself, were huge meetings of protest, where participate many thousands of people. Unfortunately, Russian police and troops arrested many of these people. I read just a couple days ago that already 13,000 people were arrested in Russia for participation in meeting of protest against the war. Putin regime, unfortunately, still supported by troops and police. Of course, in spite of all support that provide troops and police to Putin regime, I hope it would not stay for long in power, because all Western civilized world supporting to Ukraine and its struggle for independence. President of Ukraine, Zelensky, become national hero. He already awarded by medals of United States, Ronald Reagan medal, also by Czech medal. After him, named streets. For example, I read yesterday that street where is Russian embassy in Washington, D.C. renamed Zelensky Street, President Zelensky Street. And of course, all world appreciate what doing Ukraine, but world should not just appreciate, world should provide Ukraine more weapons. And arguments that we don't want start nuclear war does not work for me. I can tell you why. Putin told everywhere publicly that he going to return NATO to border of 1997. This real goal of his war. He fight not only with Ukraine, he fight with NATO. It's a position of Putin. And what mean return NATO to border of 1997? It means that Poland, Czechoslovakia, also Romania, Czechia, Slovakia now, of course, Romania, also Baltic states should not be any more members of NATO. How he can make this country and make them members of NATO? This means that he's going to start war against these countries as soon as he finishes with Ukraine. Ukraine just the first victim. So basically, Putin already started World War III. Just world did not realize it yet. That Putin does not use now nuclear weapons, this is because he does not need it to deal with Ukraine. But he may use it later, who knows? And in this case, I can say the world will face another war with Putin just a few months after he finishes war with Ukraine, as soon as he will prepare for new war. Basically, what did Putin? He declared war to all Western world. Despite of all, I hope that the forces of freedom and democracy will overcome the forces of evil and Nazi regime of Putin. Of course, Russia already feel sanctions, and many companies, including McDonald's, Starbucks, Coca-Cola, and other left Russia. And of course, economic situation of Russia becoming worse. but it works for common people. Why is this not enough, and why Ukraine needs more support? Because, as I said, that Putin still have enough troops and power to continue war with Ukraine. And if Ukraine would not succeed to defend its independence, it will encourage Putin to attack other countries. And other countries can be even weaker and smaller than Ukraine. For example, Moldova or Baltic states, they would not stand as long as Ukraine. So better stop aggressor when it's not too late, because the tactic of appeasement that world provide toward Hitler just let Hitler more time to prepare for larger war and incorporate resources of other countries to the Third Reich. Same with Putin. If he take Ukraine, he will incorporate resources of Ukraine and make his army just stronger. We don't need this. We need really remove this evil political regime from power. I don't understand how after all this war crimes, other political leaders go and negotiate something with Putin, sit at same table with him, shake his bloody hands. I really believe that it's a big political mistake. And people should learn lessons from history. They saw that impossible to trust any aggressors. They always lie. And second, they saw that tactic of appeasement of aggressor did not work with Hitler. Why it should work with Putin? Why we should trust Putin more than Hitler? So we need to finish with this horrible political regime that make nuclear basically blackmail for entire world. We need support Ukraine in its struggle, and then I hope that nothing will remain from Putin regime, and all people who participate in aggression against Russia will face a military tribunal. This is my position, and this is opinion also of my friends and colleagues who are fighting now in Ukraine against Putin aggression. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kitterer. You've made some really important points, I think. Some questions are beginning to come into the chat. So if you want to stop sharing, thank you. And I will bring Dr. Turner to the screen now. And Dr. Turner, let's start with your comments.
Hi, thank you all for being here today. Thank you, Dr. Kitterer, and thank you, Barbara, for inviting me. That was really a most interesting and informative presentation by Dr. Kitterer. And I know, like many of you others here, we are all glued to the TV and just can't wait to hear the latest news. And like I fear when I get up in the morning to check the news screen and see what's happened overnight, and to make sure, you know, that Ukraine is doing well as it continues to do, and hurt Russia, which is what needs to be done. Because the only good way that I could see an end to it is that if the Russian people themselves get Putin to stop. But anyway, let me start by talking a little bit for the people who don't know about Gesher Galicia. Okay, I'm going to share my screen here. Bear with me 1 second. And I just want to show people, okay, where Galicia was and where it is now. Okay, the green was the province of Gesher, province of Galicia, which was in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So many of you who are what we call Galicianers, people from Galicia, many of us heard from our grandparents that they were Austrian, okay? Renee Steinig, who I see on this call today, likes to tell the story in her Galician Basic talks with Shelley Polero, that she heard from her grandmother that she was Austrian, and she had this vision in her mind of Viennese balls and the waltz and the opera house and stuff like that. And when she found out where she was from, she found out that she was from a little tiny shtetl. So today, Galicia is in southeastern Poland and western Ukraine, okay? Ukraine, before this invasion, was many people thought of it as two countries of eastern and western Ukraine, where the eastern part was very Russified and the western part was more Ukrainian nationalist, what we used to call Ruthian. One thing Putin has accomplished is he's united the country. There's no talk of Eastern Ukraine or Western Ukraine. They're just one country united against Putin and Russia. Okay, and so Gesher Galicia is mostly a genealogical group where we have records where you could search the Old Galicia database, which anyone with Galiciana roots, I urge to if you want to research it, to look at the Old Galicia database and also look at JRI Poland. I know Mark Halpern is here, and those two sites are the place you need to look at if you want to research your roots. But Gesher Galicia is also interested in education about the Galiciana culture, and we are working to preserve that culture and heritage, which is a very fine and proud heritage that we all should feel good about. Now, there is a war in part of our former lands, and the other former lands is that's in southeastern Poland is working their butt off to take care of refugees coming out of Galicia. So what is Gesher Galicia doing? Okay, we have many contacts throughout the country of Ukraine who are letting us know what is happening to them. We share that information in news feeds that I post on Facebook and our Facebook page every day. And I send to the discussion groups from Jewish Gen, from JRI Poland, and Gesher Galicia. And these postings have gotten such a following, have become so popular that normally a posting of ours gets a few likes, a few comments. A popular posting may get 25 or 30. Now we're getting in the hundreds, and I'm getting comments and emails of people, what is going on? And they're thanking us for posting these comments because they feel that they're getting to know what's happening to the common people in Ukraine without a filter from the news media. So last week, the airport in Ivano-Frankivsk was bombed. Now, in my bio that Barbara read before at the start of this program, she mentioned how I was the founder of the Nadvorna Shtetl Research Group. Nadvorna is a city today in the Ivano-Frankivsk region of Western Ukraine, which was a very densely populated region with Jews when Jews lived in the area. Western Ukraine today, sadly, has very, very few Jews. The majority of Jews in Ukraine live in Eastern Ukraine, but Western Ukraine used to be very Jewish. And that's the area that Gesher Galicia as a group concentrates on. Now, in 2018, I led a group of descendants from Nadvorna from Warsaw to Ivano-Frankivsk. We spent a Shabbos there with Rabbi Moshe Kolesnik and the Ivano-Frankivsk Jewish community. Now, Ivano-Frankivsk used to be called, I use the Yiddish pronunciation because I could say that better than the Polish pronunciation, but that was Stanislav. I don't know if many of you here have heard of. Can somebody please mute? Okay, thank you. Was called Stanislav, and the Stanislav Oblast or region was a very, very densely populated area of Jews. Now, Stanislav, Rabbi Kolesnik is a wonderful man. Now, my father, who was born in Galicia in Nadverna, like I said, grew up in Vienna, and he used to talk about the Wunder Rebbe from Stanislav that used to come to Vienna, and when he would come for Shabbos, all the Galicianos in Vienna would come to hear this Wunder Rebbe speak. Well, I like to say there's a Wunder Rebbe today in Stanislav also. Rabbi Kolesnik is a wonderful man. He is like the only operator in the region of this very, very Jewish region, which unfortunately our mark is left with many cemeteries and mass grave sites. And he works tirelessly to preserve them. And also he collects genealogy records that we at Geshe Galicia are trying to take care of and inventory and make available to the community. So last week from the Stanislav community, I received 2 urgent messages. They need help. They need help badly. They need to buy generators. They were just bombed the day before. Please, please do all you can to help. So I commissioned, I started making phone calls to other directors to see what we could do. And we came up with the idea to have an emergency appeal. You could see right here, an emergency appeal for the Ukrainian Galician Jewish community. Now, Galicia is our area of concentration, so that's what we're concentrating on. We're a Jewish organization, so we're concentrating on Jewish organizations, but because they're Jewish organizations doesn't mean that they don't help anyone that comes to them in search of aid, okay? So we put together this group very quickly, okay? After Shabbos, last Saturday, we sent out an email asking for donations to this group. And apparently our email hit the recipients of the email right in their kishkas, okay? This appeal struck a chord. We all have memories of our ancestors in Galicia as refugees, as survivors, as victims, okay? We don't want to see that again. We just don't. So we started this appeal to go to organizations that are in Jewish Galicia, which unfortunately today is mostly in Ivano-Frankivsk, formerly Stanislav, in Lviv, formerly Lomborg, the capital of Galicia, and there's a bit around Ternopil also. But that's the majority of where the Jews in the Galician portion of Ukraine currently live, and that's who we're trying to help. We have gotten almost 500 donations. I'm not at liberty to give out numbers at this point. We're not sharing that, but I could say that in the first hour we collected $10,000. Okay, this appeal has struck a chord, and we are trying our best to help. And help we send money to these communities to try, and I'm going to stop my share now, to send money to these communities to help their members. And fortunately for them, they are not in the front lines at this point, other than a few minor bombing incidents like that airport in Ivano-Frankivsk. which I would like to share that I made a podcast with Alex Denisenko, who lives in Lviv, and he couldn't believe that they bombed that particular airfield, because when I was in Ivano-Frankivsk, I was in their airport, and I heard that the airport in Ivano-Frankivsk was bombed. I thought, oh my God, that's awful. And he said the Ivano-Frankivsk airfield that they bombed was not the civilian airfield, but it was an old Soviet airfield that is hardly ever used anymore. So like, he doesn't know what they were working on, that they went to the risks because they were not operating in that area. So they went to risks to bomb this airfield. So apparently, and this was right at the beginning of the invasion, the Russian intelligence is not as good as everyone feared that it was. And we are trying to help these people. We are trying to help the refugees. We are updating our membership and the entire community all the time with information from people on the ground and we urge you to follow our Facebook group, this discussion list, and let's pray for Ukraine, for all of Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Turner. We have a number of questions, wide-ranging. So first, I want to start with a practical question from Patty. Where can I donate to help Ukraine?
Well,
So-
I'll say if you want to help us, we had that appeal. Go to our website at geshergalicia.org. Shelley, I see is raising her hand.
Yes, I just put a message in the chat to donate to the Gesher Galicia Ukrainian Galician Jewish Community Emergency Appeal. Go to our website, www.geshergalicia.org, and there you will see a large yellow and blue banner with a donate button, and it will take you directly to that. And you will be receive a notification from PayPal, and then you will eventually receive an official receipt from Gesher Galicia.
Thank you. But I just want to point out, though, that we are limited to donate to the Galician areas of Ukraine by our solicitation. Okay, we're doing everything kosher, we're doing everything legal. There are many fine organizations to support the Ukrainian community, Ukrainian Jewish community, and I would urge all of you, to the Taub Foundation, the highest, the Joint Distribution Community. Those are all fine organizations doing wonderful work. And our appeal is just for the Galician Jewish Ukrainian community.
Thank you.
I can add that I also have a list of organizations and I can also provide them. I will send to Barbara after the talk, and if somebody interested, there are many of them that try to help people in Ukraine who now live without food, electricity, and some even without water, so they badly need help.
Thank you. And we will be sending out a communication with the link to the recording. We'll include those links to organizations as well. Thank you. Now I want to turn to some questions from the Moorestown Friends High School. And these are for Dr. Kitterer. When were you first worried about Putin and Russia before the invasion?
I worried about Putin invasion, honestly, in 2013-14, when was Revolution of Dignity in Ukraine, because already then were rumors that Putin going to attack Ukraine. Then he took Crimea and start war on Donbass and Lugansk. So he already then took some Ukrainian territories. And then was concern by my friends that Putin may go to Kiev, but then he still was not ready for large war. So he limited his appetite by Donbass, Lugansk, that eastern provinces of Ukraine, and by Crimea. But now, unfortunately, he even prepared more weapons. I think all these years were for Ukrainian people years of worry that Putin may start the war. But at the same time, majority of experts claim that if war started, would start on Donbass. Nobody anticipate until probably a few weeks before war start that war would start in entire territory of Ukraine. Now Putin bump east and west, south and north. So this is a problem that evil appeared even more powerful that can predict many military experts.
Thank you. And the school also asks, are Russians using Ukrainian women and children, i.e. civilians, in their invasion tactics?
I mean, Russians all the time claim that they destroying only military objects in Ukraine. Really, they kill women, they kill children, they killed basically everybody who on the way. They very ruthless because they even don't allow to bring humanitarian aid to people who suffer from shortage of food or water, to civilian people, for small children. They bomb hospitals and schools, universities and kindergartens. So, I mean, they try to destroy everything. I can say that this regime should be denounced as a Nazi regime in Germany or fascist regime in Italy.
Does anyone envision a realistic chance of removing Putin and his circle from power?
I would like to
can,
say, okay, go ahead, Dr.
please go ahead.
Okay, I will say, yeah, I do. I think the sanctions are really, really hurting the common Russian. I think the oligarchs are not very happy at all. I think the military people in the Russian military are not very happy at all. I think Russian mothers with their sons coming back in body bags or wounded are not very happy at all. And Putin could try to be as repressive as he wants, but at some point, something's got to give, because the Ukrainian people are not going to give up. Putin may win some battles. He might have some small victories here and there, but he will never, ever conquer Ukraine.
And Dr. Kitterer, what do you want
Yes, I can say it's difficult to get this guy. This is a problem. He had, first of all, he a former member of KGB. He know how to organize security. He had probably thousands of people who guard him from any possible invasion. It's very difficult to get even on territory of Kremlin where he hide. And I can say it's a difficult task. I think even more people now hate Putin and Russia that provide statistics, but problem that how get this guy. Oligarchs, several oligarchs already talk against the war, but Putin's still alive. Oligarchs talk still 2 weeks ago, 3 Russian oligarchs against the war. But I mean, nobody yet organized, as far as I know, attempt on Putin. That, of course, too bad. Would be very good if somebody gets him.
And you showed a chart in your presentation, Dr. Kitterer, of the strength of the Russian army, the Ukrainian army. How well established, in your opinion, is the Ukrainian army?
First of all, as I said, it's a difficult task for Ukraine. Got same size army as Russia, because Russia has 144 million people and Ukraine only 43 million people. So there are not physically so many young people who can hold the weapons. Furthermore, Ukraine gave up in 1994, according to Budapest Memorandum, its nuclear weapons, and they gave up it to Russia because other countries like Great Britain and United States guarantee the protection for Ukraine. So according to this memorandum, actually 3 former Soviet republics, Ukraine, Belarus, and Kazakhstan, gave up their nuclear weapons for Russia. They like voluntarily become not nuclear countries. But Western world promised to protect them. And now you can see that even they cannot give weapons, not only go fight for Ukraine, they refuse, but they don't give weapons to Ukraine. There are planes that promise Poland, they don't give it directly, they give it to NATO, NATO afraid start war with Mr. Putin if they give these airplanes to Ukraine, and Ukraine have to fight alone. Ukraine had, for the size of country, decent army, 180,000, but lots of Ukrainian tanks, lots of Ukrainian airplanes were destroyed like in first day of the war by airstrikes of Russia. And this is why, without nuclear weapons, without significant number of regular weapons, Ukrainian people in very difficult situation. They begged the West to close the sky. They said, if West close the sky, we will deal with enemy on the ground. But West so far just denounced aggression, put sanction, but did not provide enough, by my opinion, military help to Ukraine.
So we have a few more questions from students. Are the Ukrainian soldiers more focused on fighting Russians or rescuing and evacuating civilians?
Definitely more fighting Russians because civilians, I mean, women and children evacuate themselves basically when city in Sokola, like Melitopol, it's very difficult to get from there any civilians, but places that not in Sokol yet, civilians basically try to help themselves. They fleeing to the west through Lviv, through Chernivtsi, and they go into Poland, they go into Romania, they go into other countries. And by statistics that I heard a couple days ago, already almost 2 million people left Ukraine, women and children. Men stand and fighting, and their main goal to defend independence of Ukraine. Because now, unfortunately, front line very close to Kyiv, and very soon may start the battle for Kyiv, that I worry a lot because I have friends, I have relatives, I have colleagues in the city that consciously decide to stay there. They don't want to go anywhere. And of course, their life in danger.
Well, and I think a very telling point is, let's see where the refugees are going, right? If Putin was invading Ukraine to save the Ukrainian people from their horrendous government to a bunch of drug addicts and Nazis, then why aren't the refugees running into Russia if they want to be saved? Why are they running to every place that's not influenced by Russia? So I think you know, the Ukrainian military needs to concentrate on fighting the Russians, and the rest of the world needs to step up to help the Ukrainian refugees.
Thank you. I know this question has come up a bit in my conversations with colleagues. Is it fair to compare this war, so far as we've seen it, to genocide? Is this a genocide?
I saw Chuck Schumer today said that he called it another Holocaust. I'm not the expert on the definition. I read Philippe Sand's book on the East-West Street, on the formation of the terms genocide and crimes against humanity. I think if you're bombing innocent women and children and it's not like an isolated thing, but an organized campaign, I'm not into semantics. I don't think semantics matter very much, but I have no trouble calling it a genocide.
And what do you think, Dr. Kitterer?
Yes, I think so, because this war not only against military people, but it war against civilian, and by definition of term genocide, it mass murder of people on ground of their ethnicity or religion or political beliefs. And in this way, we can say that already over 1,400 civilians were killed and injured, and among them many children. Today, as I said, Russian aviation bombed a children hospital. There will be dozens, if not hundreds, of victims of this airstrike, and it definitely genocide. I mean, genocide can be against thousands of people, can be against million people. So far it's thousands, but war become more brutal every day. And I'm afraid that by the end of the war will perish not thousands, but tens of thousands of people.
And do you think there's a correlation between Angela Merkel stepping down as Chancellor of Germany and Germany undergoing a transition in leadership and Putin's increased aggression and attack on Ukraine?
I can say everything together, and this contribute also. So some weakness of Western governments, and because if it would be at least one decisive political leader in the West that said, I will bomb Russia, and after first rockets would go to Russia, even not nuclear, just rockets, I think would be more protest against Putin regime, and Putin regime would collapse soon. But everybody afraid of Putin. Nobody even dare to give Ukrainian people airplanes that they can protect themselves. And in this way, Putin feel absolutely that there are no punishment for his war crimes, and he behave more and more aggressive. And yes, I can say that this war show not only heroic struggle of Ukrainian people and evil of Putin regime, it show the weakness of Western countries and how all the West afraid one country, Russia, with Putin that creates their pro-Nazi regime.
I would like to add this, that I don't know so much about about Angela Merkel not being there anymore, but I think Putin is shocked at how the West has come together against him. I think he is shocked that Germany, who was always hesitating to join the rest of NATO in enforcing anything against Russia, has joined the crowd. I think he's shocked that the pipelines is shut down and that oil is not being purchased anymore by the United States. Putin has been remarkable in bringing not only the Ukrainian people together, but NATO together, Republicans and Democrats in the United States together. How the world is united. Now, we could say we wish they did more, and I would say that too. We wish they did more, but I don't think there's any question. What was there? Just like North Korea and I forgot what other country it was that voted with you in the UN not to condemn Russia. I mean, Russia has never ever been so isolated. And it's remarkable, and that's the only good thing that I could see out of this, and that to me is the only way that we're ever going to see a decent end to it also.
So we only have a few more minutes, and I I will not be able to get to all the questions, so if it's okay, if I send the questions to both of you, and
Sure,
we'll
absolutely.
answer, we'll include that with our communication with the recording link when we have that. Are Russian troops suffering as much damage as Ukrainian forces?
I would say probably more, okay? Because they don't want to be there. It's one thing to be fighting for your own country, and it's another thing to be a conscript and to be told that you're fighting to liberate people, and then you see that these people don't want to be liberated. So, I mean, as far as the toll of how many Ukrainian soldiers have been killed versus Russian soldiers, that I'm not talking about. I'm talking emotionally. Okay, I think the Russian soldiers are suffering terribly, and is one of the reasons why they're doing so poorly.
Russian troops definitely have more atrocities than the Ukrainian troops, because Ukrainian fight on own land and they know well their own country. Russians attack and they don't know country well, and they often also come to captivity. But problem that there are too many still troops can cause harm to Ukraine, because Russia has 2 million people in reserve, now fight only 280,000, and only 12,000 of them were killed or injured. So Russia still have potential. We should not underestimate Russian potential to fight in Ukraine and cause death, destruction, and horror for people who live there. This is why West should provide weapons, not only humanitarian aid, that's also very important, because people are hungry, people thirsty, but also it should provide weapons to Ukraine, that Ukraine can fight for their independence and for our democracy. Because if Putin, God forbid, would win this war in Ukraine, he definitely next step will be occupation of Baltic states and Poland.
So we're just about out of time. I want to thank you both for your insights today and your perspectives. I want to thank all the attendees. It's a great turnout because we are all very concerned about what's happening. And especially when we think about precedents and what could happen. We will send out the recording when we have it. I have put in the chat what our next program is at the end of March for Women's History Month. And I will get some answers from questions we just couldn't get to today.
Well, thank you, Barbara, for
Thank you all
organizing
so
this.
much.
I
Thank you very much.
for attending. I would like to just finish by saying that please follow us on social media for the latest updates. Contribute to any place that you think was worthy of your dollars. And, you know, as from Gesher Galicia, we always want to hear from you, and we would love to welcome anyone who would like to be a member. And thank you all, and let's pray for Ukraine.
Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you for organizing this program.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Great.
Thank you.